She tried to use her pregnancy to extort me until this man walked into the courtroom. They say every man has a moment that changes him forever. For me, it was the day she told me she was pregnant. It should have been a life-changing announcement, the kind that makes you rethink everything, that shifts your priorities, that makes you step up and be a man. But when Sophie said those words, I didn't feel joy. I felt fear. Because deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Sophie and I had dated casually for a few months. She was beautiful, confident, and had a way of making me feel like I was the only man in the world when she wanted to. But there were red flags, ones I ignored, ones that I shouldn't have. She was obsessed with money, constantly bringing up what a real man should provide. She had a habit of keeping score, making comments like, "You owe me for all the time I've given you," and "A man's job is to take care of a woman. If you can't, he's not worth keeping." I should have walked away. Instead, I let things drag on. Then one day, she hit me with the bombshell. I'm pregnant. My world froze. She wasted no time making it clear what she expected. "This baby changes everything," she said, arms folded, watching me carefully. "I need stability. We need to get married, and I need to know you're going to provide." I hesitated. "Are you sure? I mean, are we even ready for this?" Her eyes flashed. "What kind of question is that? You think I'd lie about something like this?" I held up my hands. "I'm not saying that. I want to be sure. We should get a test." Silence. Then she laughed. Not a nervous laugh. A cold, rehearsed laugh. "Oh, I see. You don't trust me. Wow. That's really how little you think of me?" And just like that, the guilt trip began. Every conversation turned into a test of my loyalty. If I questioned her, I was accusing her of being a liar. If I asked for time, I was abandoning my responsibility. If I hesitated, even for a second, I was no better than the deadbeat dads who run away. She had me cornered, or so she thought. Something didn't sit right. I wasn't a naive kid. I had seen men trapped in situations like this before, where a woman weaponizes pregnancy to secure financial security, not a family. So one night I made a decision. I called a lawyer. "I need a paternity test before I do anything, before I sign anything, before I say yes to marriage, child support, any of it. I need proof." His reply was immediate. "That's the smartest thing you've ever said." And that was the moment the game changed, because Sophie had no idea that I wasn't just going to roll over and accept my fate. I was going to fight. And when the truth came out, she was going to wish she had never tried to play me. I wasn't going to be another statistic. I had seen too many men get destroyed by false paternity claims, trapped into paying for a child that wasn't even theirs, forced into financial ruin while the woman walked away richer. Not me, not this time. Sophie thought she had me in checkmate. What she didn't know was that I was about to flip the board. The moment I mentioned a paternity test, Sophie lost it. "Are you seriously questioning me?" She spat, eyes blazing with fury. "What kind of man even thinks like that?" "A smart one," I shot back. "A man who isn't about to let himself get played." She crossed her arms. "If you don't trust me, then maybe you don't deserve to be in this baby's life." Ah, there it was. The classic emotional manipulation, the obey me or lose everything tactic. I had expected it. I just didn't expect her to go nuclear so quickly. I met with my lawyer the next day. "She's going to fight you on this," he warned. "She'll try to make you look like a monster for even asking." I nodded. "I don't care. I want the test." He smirked. "Good, because I already filed the request. She'll be served the papers tomorrow." That's when Sophie's plan started falling apart. She had assumed I would cave, that I would panic, throw money at the problem, and let her control the situation. Instead, she got served with legal documents demanding proof, and suddenly her story started to crumble. At first, she played the victim. She called me, sobbing. "How could you do this to me? I'm carrying your child. I thought you loved me." I stayed silent, letting her run out of fake tears. Then, when she paused for breath, I said exactly what she didn't want to hear. "If it's my child, the test will prove it. If you have nothing to hide, why are you afraid?" Silence, then a sharp inhale. "You're disgusting," she hissed and hung up. But I wasn't worried, because that silence, that hesitation, that panic in her voice, that was the first sign that I was winning. A week passed. Sophie refused to take the test. She dodged calls, ignored legal notices, and made excuse after excuse. Then one night I got a call from her best friend. "Look, I shouldn't be telling you this," she whispered, "but Sophie's been lying. She's not even sure if it's yours. She's been sleeping with someone else this whole time." I felt nothing. No anger, no shock, no pain. Because deep down, I already knew. "Thanks for telling me," I said simply, then hung up. The next morning, I called my lawyer. "Push harder. If she doesn't comply, we're taking this to court." And that's when she made her worst mistake. She dragged me to court first, and it was the beginning of her downfall. Sophie thought dragging me into court would scare me into submission. She expected me to break under pressure, to beg for mercy, to throw money at the problem just to make it all go away. She was wrong. The moment I walked into that courtroom, I was ready for war. She sat across from me, her lawyer whispering something in her ear. She looked composed, but I saw the tight grip on her pen, the stiffness in her shoulders. She was nervous. Good. Her lawyer stood first. Your Honor, my client has suffered immense emotional distress due to the defendant's refusal to provide support for her unborn child. She is seeking immediate financial assistance. My lawyer stood. Your Honor, we have formally requested a paternity test, which the plaintiff has refused to take. Until we have proof of paternity, my client has no legal obligation. Sophie tensed. Her lawyer adjusted his tie. The request for a test is offensive. My client is confident in the paternity of this child. The judge frowned. Then why not take the test? Silence. Sophie shifted in her seat. The courtroom was dead quiet. And then the doors opened. A man walked in, tall, confident, expression cold as steel. I had never seen him before, but the moment Sophie turned to look at him, her face drained of all color. I leaned toward my lawyer. Who is that? He smirked. That's her other boyfriend. Sophie's real nightmare had just begun. The moment Sophie saw him, her entire demeanor changed. Her posture stiffened, her hands clenched into fists, and for the first time since this started, she looked scared. The judge glanced between her and the new arrival. Who is this? The man, tall, sharp-featured, and exuding confidence, stepped forward. Your Honor, my name is Daniel, and I have reason to believe that I am the father of this child. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. My lawyer leaned back in his chair, amused. Well, he murmured. This just got interesting. Sophie bolted up from her seat. No, he's lying. This is just an attempt to humiliate me. The judge turned to her. Miss Carter, have you been involved with this man? She opened her mouth, but Daniel cut her off. Your Honor, we were together for months. She told me she was on birth control, then suddenly disappeared. Next thing I know, I hear through mutual friends that she's pregnant and pinning it on someone else. I just sat back and enjoyed the show. Sophie turned to the judge, desperate. He's just trying to ruin me. The baby is his. She pointed at me. He's just using this to get out of responsibility. The judge sighed. Enough. I'm ordering a court-supervised paternity test. Both alleged fathers will provide samples. This matter will not proceed without scientific proof. Checkmate. Sophie slumped into her chair, staring at the desk in front of her. She had lost, and she knew it. Title: She tried to use her pregnancy to extort me until this man walked into the courtroom. Part 5. The Final Blow. The courtroom was silent as the judge read the results. After reviewing the paternity test results, the court confirms that the biological father of the child is... He paused, looking up. Sophie held her breath. My lawyer smirked. Daniel leaned forward, his jaw tight. Not the defendant. I let out a slow breath, feeling the weight of months of stress lift from my shoulders. I wasn't the father. I had known it deep down, but hearing it confirmed in a courtroom with Sophie sitting right there was pure satisfaction. Sophie shot up from her seat. This is wrong. That test is wrong. He must have paid someone. The judge held up a hand. Sit down, Miss Carter. I will not tolerate outbursts in my courtroom. The test was conducted under court supervision. There's no possibility of tampering. Sophie's face crumbled. Her entire scheme, months of manipulation, deception, and trying to secure a financial future through lies, had just imploded in front of everyone. Daniel shook his head, his expression a mix of disgust and relief. So that's it. You really had no idea who the father was, did you? She turned to him, her voice weak. I thought it was you, but I wasn't sure. The judge rubbed his temples. Then you knowingly attempted to deceive this court into holding an innocent man financially responsible for a child that wasn't his. That is fraud, Miss Carter. Sophie sat down, defeated. What happens now? My lawyer stood. Your Honor, given the emotional and financial distress my client has suffered due to these false accusations, we intend to file a civil lawsuit for damages. Additionally, we request that Miss Carter be investigated for paternity fraud. Sophie's eyes widened in horror. No, please. It was just a mistake. I didn't mean... This court does not look kindly upon mistakes that could ruin a man's life, the judge interrupted coldly. Mr. Carter, you may proceed with your claims. This case is dismissed. The gavel slammed down. It was over. Outside the courtroom, I turned to Daniel. You dodged a bullet, man. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. So did you? Sophie stayed behind, her world collapsing around her. No payday, no legal leverage, and a possible fraud investigation looming over her. As I walked out into the fresh air, my lawyer clapped me on the back. That was a close one. I smirked. Not really. I never doubted the truth would come out. Because in the end, no matter how manipulative, deceptive, or cunning someone is, lies always have an expiration date. And Sophie had just reached hers.